Today we are starting with the life of Socrates. The topic with the Socrates. The Socrates was basically born in 470 BC in the ancient Greece, and he worked as a stonemason. And in the later period, he also served in the military. And after retiring from the military, basically he took the profession of teaching. And his reputation grew when Oracle of Delphi, a priestess at the temple of Apollo, proclaimed that no one was wiser than Socrates. And Socrates took this statement that priest has made, no one was wiser than Socrates. Socrates has basically took this statement as a puzzle and took the to the mission of finding a wiser man than himself. So we can see that Socrates uh, has basically taken the challenge of finding a person wiser than himself, and he, in the search of that person who is more wiser than himself, he basically interviewed many great people and found that although they had a good knowledge of their field, they are also assumed that they have the knowledge of other fields and where they don't have actually, right? Suppose like an example you can see, a person is having the in-depth knowledge in the maths, but still he claims to have the knowledge of physics, but though he is not having the that much depth knowledge in the physics actually. So that is basically the people that basically they were ignorant about their ignorance, and that basically you can say the Socrates, for Socrates has said that he was an ignorant as other man, but with very slight advantage that at least he knew he was ignorant, and that way he was the wisest man of the entire population, and thus he found the words of oracle irrefutable, that I know nothing. Now, next we talk. However, this quest for the of Socrates earned him several enemies, and he was charged with spreading irreligion and corrupting youth of Athens. A trial was conducted and was found guilty and awarded death punishment. The wisest man of Athens was put to death in 399 BC, and thus first thinker of political philosophy was also was the first martyr. Now we'll talk about the ancient Greek thought. So far we have seen about the life of Socrates. Socrates was born in 470 BC in Athens. He lived there. He worked in the stonemason. He worked as a military. After retiring from the military, he took the profession of teaching. While he was teaching, basically at that time he was very much a renowned person, renowned teacher in that area, and one of the priest of a church basically declared one of the priests of the church basically declared that one of the priests of the church declared that the Socrates wiser Socrates Socrates is wiser than everyone else in the entire Athens, and that he took the challenge, and he was searching for the people, and in that search of the population, basically he got many enemies. He was charged with the he was charged for for inciting the people against the state, against the interest of the state, and he was asked to either run away from the state or take the hemlock, and he chose to take the hemlock, and obviously he was put to death, put to death, and thus the wisest man of the Athens was put to death in 399 BC. and thus the first thinker of political philosophy was also its first martyr. Now we will talk before we talk about the ancient Greek thought. Let us also understand the nature of the society that was prevailing in the entire Greece. In the entire Greece, there was city-states. City-states is basically a region. Uh, a city-states is basically like we can say in context of India, like we have the Patna city, we have the Bangalore, like we have the city, but the the reason is basically that broader reason is India, and cities are all these Bengal, Calcutta, etc. Similarly, in the ancient Greece society, the city was basically the polity was basically defined by the city state. The city state is basically is that the people of that region was having the loyalty to that region only, and they are not having the loyalty to the broader region, that is ancient Greece, right? And moreover, it should also be noted that there was no conception of nation at that time, and the Greek society was basically an agriculture society okay? And they were basically practicing the slavery as a mode of production, and the Greek society was also patriarchal in society, right? Now the Greek society in the Greek society, the Athens and Sparta, basically the city states, were fighting against each other, and one of the there was war, uh, was the Peloponnesian War that has occurred between the Athens and the Sparta. In that war, Sparta has basically defeated the Athens, and that was a turning point in the life of Plato. And Plato started searching why the reason for the defeat of Athens, and from where we get the evidence of Peloponnesian War. There is history of Peloponnesian War, published by the written by Thucydides, and this was the first book which talks contain the idea of realism. Now we'll talk about the Socrates theory of knowledge. These questions are not very much important, but still you have to understand the theories, right? So before Socrates, basically we can see that the people were more concerned about about understanding the physical, chemical, and biological properties of life. But Socrates believed that it is not enough to know what constitutes life, but rather it is more important to know what constitutes good life or virtuous life, right? Why? Why it is important? Because the objective of life is to lead a good life. But in order to lead a good life, we have to understand the knowledge of good life. And the source of ultimate knowledge is within ourselves. The source of ultimate knowledge of the good life is within ourselves. How? So according to him, our soul is the ultimate guide. How? What we should do and what we should not do, our soul can resolve the dilemma. And to understand the voice of the soul, Socrates has proposed the method of dialectics. To understand the voice of the soul, Socrates had proposed the method of dialectics. Like, what is the dialectics? Dialectics can be called as the method of logical reasoning. What is that? It is a kind of unique method invented by Socrates. And Socrates was a teacher by profession, and his method was to engage people in debate. The objective of the debate is that other person should understand the limitations of his arguments and is able to correct himself in logical manner. And this is the only way people will be convinced. Next, Socrates classification of knowledge. There are two types of knowledge: illusion of knowledge, conceptual knowledge. Illusion of knowledge is a kind of beliefs or opinion which are shakable, but type 2 is conceptual knowledge. Conceptual knowledge is knowledge which is unshakable, which is the product of dialectic, And through dialectic, opinion gets filtered or uncluttered, and we are able to achieve the true knowledge. Socrates as a father of ethics and philosophy. Socrates is also known as father of ethics. Ethics is basically a branch of philosophy which help us in understanding how we ought to live in the society. And philosophy is the study of that idea. And Socrates has emphasized on understanding the idea, and therefore he is also known as father of philosophy. Now next we have the unexamined life is not worth living comment. The above statement basically is from the Socrates theory of knowledge, where he gives the meaning of true knowledge. The context of the theory is that the scholars were focusing on the physical properties of life. The context of which theory? That is theory of knowledge. So we have seen already that the scholars were focusing on the physical properties of life. But Socrates suggested that it is not enough to know what constitutes life. Rather, it is more important to understand what constitutes a good life. So according to him, in order to lead a good life, we should have knowledge of good life. In order to understand the good life, he makes distinction between the knowledge and the knowledge which appears to be knowledge. A knowledge which can be called as that is a knowledge which can be called as a knowledge in true sense. So the ultimate knowledge, that is the true knowledge, is basically unshakable, and also proposed method dialectics to gain the true knowledge. And hence, for Socrates, the knowledge of good life is necessary, and he believes unexamined life is not worth living. The point can also be justified that the Socrates has preferred to choose hemlock rather than running away. Right? And thus it is important to critically examine our beliefs so that we are able to lead a good life in real sense, and equates knowledge with true virtue, and thus having true knowledge is the precondition of a good life. This idea is relevant in the Indian context. The idea is relevant in Indian context how where many outdated customs and traditions are still prevalent among certain sections of society. And when these practices, institutions are critically examined, when we critically examine institutions, illogical and inhuman practices, then only social progress can be possible. Socrates theory, and thus the Socrates theory had laid the foundation for the Plato's political philosophy and justification for the philosopher king.